faculty advisor and faculty mentor. So just know that I was lucky enough to work with Carol and study with her. So and I really think you guys are lucky. So enough about that. You guys are lucky. I'm gonna give you some facts about Ecuador and facts about the tourism industry there. I was fortunate to take students on study abroad there, so also try to bring in some stuff that might help you planning your trip. But feel free to ask me any questions, or if anything's confusing, just let me know. Also, if I'm talking too fast, just tell me to slow down, because I tend to talk quickly. A couple things. Ecuador, obviously, well, hopefully you know already, is in South America. I have to start with that because I've had students ask me what part of Africa Ecuador is in, so just know it's in South America. It's in between Colombia and Peru, and the name of the country is actually the Spanish name for equator line. So the equator is actually Ecuador in Spanish. The equator goes right through the middle of the country, and hopefully, if I'm not mistaken, you'll get to go on the equator line, and you'll get to stand on two different hemispheres, which I think is a pretty cool thing. Ecuador has approximately almost 16 million people, so it's a relatively small country. If you think about it size-wise, it's about the same size as Colorado. So that's about the proportion of it. The one really interesting thing about Ecuador, and location-wise and geography, it has 4 really distinct regions. For a very small country, it has the Amazon basin, so you have a very vast jungle. You have a mountain range, a huge mountain range that goes right through the middle of the country, with some of the tallest peaks in the world. When you land into Quito, you'll actually be able to see the tallest active volcano in the world at 21,000 feet, so a huge mountain range. And then you actually have the coast, and on the Pacific side, and then you have the Galapagos, which you're going to get to go see. So 4 very distinct regions in a very, very small country, which makes it great for tourism because it allows people to have a very diverse tourism product. If they want to go mountain climbing, they can do that. If they want to go see whales, they can do that. If they want to go take a tour down the Amazon River, they can do all that in a very small country, which is great. Kind of moving a little bit to the tourism industry. The GDP of Ecuador is around 10 billion. So its GDP is small compared to a lot of other countries. It ranks around 83rd. So it's a small economy, and tourism accounts for only about 5% of it. So the tourism industry makes about brings in about 5 billion. When you talk about indirect and induced economic impact from tourism, so about 5% of their economy comes from tourism, which is actually a good thing. It means that they have a diverse economy. They don't rely just on tourism. Agriculture is their #1 industry, and their #1 crop is banana, and they also have a very, very big fishing and cacao, shrimp, chocolate also are big industries. The tourism industry supports approximately 337,000 jobs. Those are both direct and indirect jobs. Directly it supports about 118,000 jobs. And tourism is expected to grow around 3 to 4% in the next couple of years. So it's growing, and it's growing pretty quickly. And they're making a strategic push to make tourism an even bigger part of the economy in the country. And they just recently came out with a new branding campaign, and I'm not sure if you guys have seen it. If you want to Google it, you can. It's the hashtag is all you need is Ecuador. Mm-hmm. And we actually, or the country is the first country to ever advertise on the Super Bowl, and we advertised. They had a commercial, a 30-second spot with all you need is Ecuador in 12 markets in the United States, promoting Ecuador. And they're really trying to show that Ecuador has a diverse tourism product, that you can do a lot of cool different things there, and that's kind of their big push. So just very succinctly, that's Ecuador and its economy, Ecuador and its tourism economy, just so that you have some baseline information about it. Now, with respect to your trip, you're going to be going to 2 of the 4 regions in a very short amount of time. So you're going to get to see 2 very distinct regions, which is pretty awesome. I think you're going to be going into Quito, and if you are, I'm not sure what you know about Quito. Quito is the capital. It has approximately, I think, 2 million people, so it's a very large city. It's very well developed. Everything that you need there, they have it. When you fly into the capital, one thing that you'll notice is that it's at very high elevation. You land at about 10,000 feet. So you're going to be going to a very high elevation, which makes it harder to breathe. So don't freak out if you're short of breath, or when you're walking upstairs and you're like, man, I'm out of shape. It really is just because it's high altitude. So make sure that when you're in Quito, don't run a marathon, and take it easy. Drink lots of water. If you start to feel dizzy or tired, definitely rest. Aspirin helps with the altitude sickness. Don't overeat while you're there. Those things help with the altitude. And I tell you this not to scare you, but just to be kind of prepared and not to freak out when you walk out of the plane and feel even more tired than you normally would flying to an international country. So when you you have any questions?
Speak.
I can't think of one right this moment.
All right. How about you, Carol?
Have you ever had students get altitude sickness?
Yes. Normally, about 1/3 of my students get altitude sickness, and it doesn't matter. I've had students. It doesn't matter if you're out of shape or large, small. It's just on your body, and just the reason that they get altitude sickness is just because you have less oxygen to work with, so it happens. It happens to the best of athletes. Actually, the Ecuadorian athletes have a distinct advantage when people travel to Ecuador to play sports, especially soccer, because they have a hard time with the altitude. So it's just natural, and just take it easy, be slow. Ideally, what we tell people is to go to Ecuador and have a day or 2 to acclimate to that, but you guys don't have that luxury. So just know just to take it easy.
Thank you.
So a couple of things about Quito. Quito is known as the city of churches. It has some of the prettiest churches in the world, and you're going to have a chance to go see some of those. They were built. Some of them were built over 400 years ago, and there are over 100 churches just in the capital. And I think that's one of the most interesting historical and cultural products that we have in the downtown area. Some of the churches were built to replicate the churches in Europe. One of them specifically, the basilica, was built. It's not a skyscraper, but when they started building it, they built it with the purpose of being able to see it from Europe. So it's pretty cool, really, really big, really, really tall. And then we have another church that's pretty amazing, that's built completely out of gold. It's all gold inside, which is really cool but sad because they used all the gold in the church. But it's an amazing facility. And you can go downtown and see the presidential palace and some of our administrative buildings. And I think in the afternoon you guys are going to go to the Equator Line, which is also a pretty interesting tourism attraction. So your time's short there. A couple things with Quito. Drink a lot of water. I can't stress that enough for the altitude. but don't ever drink anything but bottled water. The waters will, so don't ever drink any tap water. And make sure that even when you're brushing your teeth, use bottled water. When you're taking a shower, don't open your mouth. It's just that the water is going to, you're not used to the type of water that they have there, and it will give you travel diarrhea. So definitely drink bottled water. I can't stress that enough, bottled water. I tell my students I'd rather them drink a beer than drink tap water, because I know it's at least a little bit more etiquette. So then you guys are going to go to the Galapagos. The Galapagos is probably one of the most amazing natural attractions anywhere in the world. It's kind of like, it's definitely like going to a zoo with no walls and no windows and no cages. Actually, I think oftentimes the animals there are more looking at you than you are looking at them. I can't even describe how cool it is to see all the turtles and the seals and the blue-footed boobies and the frigates and the iguanas just running around everywhere, because you're in their environment. And it's just an amazing sight. I think you guys are going to be staying on a boat, so make sure that you take some Dramamine because you'll be the water is choppy. The Pacific Ocean it can be somewhat rough, and so definitely, even if you don't have you don't get seasickness, still bring some Dramamine just in case. And lay off on the alcohol. Don't drink a lot because that makes it even worse. Definitely take a camera. If you have a waterproof camera, even better. If you have an underwater camera, even cooler, because there's some great shots. I was able to swim with a hammerhead shark while I was down there. That was an awesome sight. I wish I would have had a camera to be able to take a picture of that. You'll be going in June. The water's going to be cold. Your yacht or your boat should have wetsuits for everybody, but just know that the water temperature is much cooler than it is here just because of the currents. It's actually warmer in December there in the water than it is in June. Let's see.
David,
what else, Carol?
I have a question. Taking us back to Quito, when we're on the boat, you know, the food is going to already be there, and they're going to prepare food for us on the boat. So
Yeah.
when we're in Quito, it seems like that might be our only chance to eat something authentic.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend?
All right. So there's one thing that there's a few different things that I love their food, first of all, but there's a typical dish that you would get nowhere else. It's called cuy. It's C-U-Y-O, and it's guinea pig.
I've had it when I was in Peru.
So they eat guinea pig, and that's the one very different and distinct thing that if you want to go somewhere and say, hey, I actually ate guinea pig, that's where you would go. And it tastes just like chicken.
It does.
But that's something that's typical. Now, I think I've had that dish maybe twice in my life, but that's one of those different things where you see on Travel Channel shows where, you know, if you go to Ecuador, that's what they talk about. Some other typical things when you're in Quito that I recommend trying is there's a potato soup. It's called locro. It's very famous. It's just a thick potato soup. It comes with avocado and cheese, and it's delicious. When you're in Quito, you're at 10,000 feet. Even though you're on the equator line, it's cold. It's cool in the evenings, like 40 degrees cold. So make sure that you have a heavy jacket for the evening. And so that's why they have that soup, is something to keep you warm. The other thing that's very typical in the highlands is fritada, which is a pork dish. It's pretty much just fried pork, very, very typical. And then another potato dish called yapigachos, also very, very typical. And then another big thing that we're known for is ice cream. People eat ice cream almost every afternoon around 4 o'clock. So there's a helados de paila, which is our ice cream that's made in a big metal container, and you just stir it around until it freezes. So I recommend trying the ice cream.
Fun. Is there an Ecuadorian beer?
Yes, so actually beer is, I said agriculture was the #1 industry. Beer actually is the #1 company. It's called Pilsner. And that's the largest beer. It's the largest company in Ecuador and the most profitable, and it's actually just called Pilsner.
Huh, okay.
But it's not necessarily really good beer. If you're a craft beer kind of person, Pilsner tastes more like Bud Light.
Yeah, like a Coors or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And you mentioned it's cool at night, but obviously during the day we're near the equator, so it's going to be hot and sunny.
Well, not necessarily in Quito.
No, okay.
In Quito, what I always tell my students is wear layers. So when you wake up in the morning, it's going to be cool, 40, 45 degrees, and then it will never get above 65, 70. It's not going to get hot in Quito. It's not hot. Now what you are is you are really close to the sun, so even though you're not hot, you're getting burned. So always wear sunscreen, even though it's not a hot climate in Quito. When you go down to the Galapagos, it's going to be hot, hot, like tropical hot. So you're going to be in two very distinct climates.
Great, that's useful. Guys, do you have any questions for David? Isn't this fun?
This isn't a serious question,
Okay.
but like, what stuff would you recommend buying? Because I read online that there were like alpaca alpaca wool socks, and then there was a custom boot factory.
I don't know much about the boots. Yes, definitely. If you have a chance to buy some stuff, I would. Different things that I recommend are the alpaca, which are either the jackets or the sweaters. That's very typical there. Other things that I recommend, especially since you guys are going to be a short amount of time and you'll have a lot to pack, for girls are the scarves. They make really, really nice scarves. Ecuador, you won't have the chance of going, but Ecuador has the largest Indian fair trade market in the world, where they hand make all the scarves and the jackets and the other things. A couple of things that they make that are really well are the hammocks. You can buy an amazing hammock for $15, and you can just roll it up and put it in your suitcase. And then near that market, they also have a leather a town that makes leather, and so maybe that's where the boots are. I'm not sure. And one other big thing that the country is really well known for is Panama hats. Actually, the Panama hats aren't made in Panama, they're made in Ecuador. The reason that they're called Panama hats is because the Ecuadorians made them, and they went and made the Panama Canal, and they were wearing those hats. So when the president, I forgot who it was, I think it's FDR, saw them, they called them Panama hats, even though they were made in Ecuador. So they're authentically made from Ecuador, and you can buy some really, really, really nice, very expensive Panama hats in Ecuador.
I'm so excited. I'm going to get one for Brian.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Things I recommend buying is chocolate.
Yes.
They make really, really good chocolate and really good coffee.
So coffee, yeah. I'm assuming that will be available at every meal, probably.
Yes, amazing coffee. The Galapagos actually is one of the few crops that they can grow in the Galapagos, and you can buy Galapagos coffee as well.
So would that be something we could bring back with us?
Yep, you can bring those back.
Okay, and do they have like dark chocolate?
They have dark chocolate. They have every kind of chocolate that you could think of. Their chocolate is amazing.
That's a great question.
I can't hear you.
Okay. No, we're just kind of stunned in silence because we're just excited.
Just thinking about stuff.
What? I don't know. Any pitfalls? I mean, Quito's a big city, and in every big city there's crime. So,
Yes.
what should we be looking out for to be safe?
Okay.
Obviously, we're not going to be like, no one person's going to go off alone.
Yeah, okay, so that's one rule that I always have. No one person walks alone. The culture is still very much a machismo culture.
Okay.
So I definitely never allow any of the women to go anywhere alone, just because it's just, not that it's not safe, it's just that you may get whistled at, or people may come and try to talk to you, but that's just who they are. It's not necessarily an unsafe thing, it's just that for a lot of my students, it just made them feel uncomfortable, because they're more likely to come talk to you than they would in the United States. They had no problem whistling and things like that. I told this to Carol before, and Quito, don't ever wear sandals, wear closed-toed shoes. You're in a big city. You're not in a tropical area. One, your feet get cold, and two, the streets just aren't clean. They're dirty. So I would highly recommend closed-toed shoes wherever you go.
David, I'm going to make that mandatory.
Yeah.
Except on the boat, so that's absolutely mandatory.
Oh, one thing I've got to say is that currency is a dollar. You don't have to exchange any money, so you don't need that. Now, with that being said, bring small bill. So if you go into a little convenience store and try to buy a bottle of water that's 15 cents and you give them a $20 bill, they're not going to have change. So try to bring small bills, a lot of ones, a lot of fives, just because that's, they don't have change. They'll have ATMs to get from it if you need it, so don't take a lot of money. They accept almost all credit cards everywhere you go. Food is inexpensive, so things are going to be a lot less expensive there than they are other places. So you can buy, you can buy a filet mignon, nice meal, beer, wine, $10. So it can be very inexpensive. And if you need it, they're going to be your corporate restaurants. We have Subways and McDonald's and Burger Kings and stuff in Quito, not in the Galapagos, but in Quito. So those are there. I don't recommend you eating them because you have them at home. But if you have to have a cheeseburger, they're there.
What's the protocol for tipping, David?
Not much. So maybe you have a nice meal that costs $1, you eat maybe $1.50. There you go.
Okay. Good.
And you don't need to tip at the hotel. The cab driver, you don't need to tip if you take a cab. Look, if you're from the United States, they're going to want you to tip, but that's not typical in Ecuador.
That kind of goes against, our nature.
Yeah.
If we tip the cab driver $1, that's, not a lot for us.
Yeah. So they'll be grateful for it, but you don't need to. The other thing that I highly discourage is don't give any money to beggars. The country is really trying to crack down on that because it's not sustainable for the community, and it just leads to more people begging. There are a lot of social programs right now trying to prevent that from happening. So just try not to do that. It's just one of those things that the country is really trying to work on.
Okay.
Do they have sushi in Quito?
They do have sushi. They have great sushi, but I don't recommend that for the short amount of time that you're there. I would try to eat at a typical restaurant if you can, because the same sushi that you get in the States, you can get there.
Okay. And are there any other drinks that you would recommend trying while we're there?
Their juices are delicious. So any kind of juice that you have, their fruit juices are awesome. So at breakfast time, they normally serve some kind of juice. They have some pretty exotic juices. So if they tell you a juice name and you can't pronounce it, I recommend you trying it because it's not something you're going to get in the States.
Thank you.
Kyle, do you have any questions?
I'm drawing a blank on everything.
Okay.
Oh, Dr. Messer was, he mentioned yesterday that after the video that we watched, what was it called?
What would Darwin think?
What would Darwin think? It makes the Galapagos look like it's really, really busy, so he was worried that it was maybe going to be a little bit compacted while we were there. Is that Is that something we should expect, like a lot of boats and people being around, or?
Yeah, so the island that you're going to go to fly into, it is a very big touristy location. 97% of that island though is a preserve. It's completely it's set up for conservation. So only 3% of all the islands are allowed to have any kind of infrastructure development. Because of that, most of the tours and the people stay on boats. And so you will see a lot of boats, and it'll be, and especially the time you're going, June, you're not necessarily in the highest peak season, but it'll get even busier. But you'll be amazed with the amount of natural resources and open space that you will see once you leave your destination. But you will see a lot of boats initially, and which is becoming somewhat of a problem. A lot of, as I said, a lot of the tourism are boat trips, and a lot of the locals are somewhat resentful of of all of the boats, because none of the tourists actually get on the islands and go into the communities that people live in. And so they spend very little money there, and the economic impact is very minimal. Most of the money that's brought into the islands are leaked out and either go back to the mainland, or even more, they leave the country. So there's been a push by some of the community members to try to get tourists to actually stay on island instead of stay on boats. So there is some conflict between the community and the tourists and the tour operators.
And then you and I talked about this earlier, and you said the government though is discouraging the infrastructure because obviously that's a greater environmental impact.
Right. Because when they stay on island, you know, they use more resources, and the environmental impacts are greater. But then there's resentment from the community, and so it's a very difficult balance that they're trying to create right now, or deal with.
Great, thank you. Guys, if we don't have any more questions for David, I guess we should let him eat dinner.
Well, if you guys have any questions, feel free. Carol, you've got my email. They can email me anytime. I'm very excited you're going. I think you're going to have an amazing time. Take lots of pictures and see and do everything you can. Again, take it easy in Quito, and then you can run a marathon in the Galapagos. Your lungs will be fine. So you could definitely do that. Have fun. Be safe. Don't drink the water. I can't stress that enough. But I'm so excited you guys are gonna go.
Thank you so